Okay, so today we're doing a rather challenging yin yoga class. And usually when I teach this sequence or similar sequences that have challenging postures in them, I just like to remind everybody that yin yoga can be challenging. So some people think of yin yoga like restorative yoga, like it's relaxation yoga, or it's supposed to be easy or relaxing while you're doing it. It tends to be relaxing when you're done because it stretches the muscles, and that generally gives us a sense of relaxation. And our muscles and our nervous system and our brain are all connected. So when our muscles are relaxed, we often just feel more relaxed. But how do we get there? We don't get there by, relaxing. We get there by stretching, and stretching doesn't always feel good. The other thing I want to say is that a lot of times when we do something that's challenging, it benefits us in a long-term scale. So short-term, while we're doing the pose, may not feel very good, may not even feel good right afterwards. But many things like going to college or working out, many things that have a long-term payoff don't feel so great in the short term. Okay, so just keep that in mind in today's class. And remember, I'll be doing it with you. So there isn't anything that I wouldn't myself do in this class. Okay, we're going to start with a half butterfly. Very simple, and this is easy for most people. Right leg straight, left foot to the inside of the thigh. And then we come forward and down relaxed. So I'm not doing one of these, I'm just relaxing my upper body. And I want to feel a stretch here. These are the hamstrings. And I also want to feel safe. I don't want to get the sense that this is not good for my body in some way. So, if you have a spinal injury or something going on in your neck, you might want support. You could support your forearms with a couple of yoga blocks, forehead with a yoga block. Left knee, you could put something under your left knee. You could also sit on a block, and that'll push you forward a little more aggressively if that's what you're looking for. Okay, so we're going to be here for a full 5. We're the better way through the first minute already. Okay, so just relax. There's nothing you need to do in terms of breathing or focusing on a certain chakra. Not that you can't do those things in yin, you can, but the most basic yin practice is the breath is natural. The mind is allowed to just sort of wander. If there's music, you can listen to the music, and feel free to put on music at home. If I'm talking about things, you can tune in, but you don't have to. If I'm not talking about anything of interest to you, you can tune me out as well. Okay, so just coming up and then switching sides, switching legs. This half butterfly pose is a very, very traditional and pretty standard hamstring stretch. So it's used in traditional yoga. It's called Janu Shirshasana, which means the head to knee pose. But you find people at the gym doing this, ballerinas, gymnasts, just everybody. So this is just a straight run-of-the-mill hamstring stretch. And we're also stretching the back of our spine as we do this. So today's class has 2 areas that we're targeting in each posture. So stretching is very good for our health. Whether you like it or not, generally speaking, most people are going to benefit by stretching on a regular basis. As we age or we do certain activities like hiking or biking or climbing, running, all these things will create tension. Sitting, all these things will create tension in our muscles of our legs. And you may have already noticed, some of you may have been able to do a full split, maybe when you were young or you were in your teens, and now you can no longer do that. Well, your body has changed some, but also your muscles have gotten tighter. And this is a trend that happens for us human beings, generally speaking. If we do not regularly stretch back out, then over time we're going to find that we are just getting tighter and tighter in the muscles of our body. So stretching regularly is a very good idea for your health in general. And then we are exercising the joints in our spine as we round our back here, which helps to keep our spine healthy and strong. A student sent me a paper that a study that had been done that showed that doing yoga on a regular basis reduces all sorts of spinal problems, compressed and degenerated discs, things of that nature. And this is how it does that. We're stretching and exercising the spine here. And just like when we exercise anything, it stays generally, it functions better than it otherwise would. And the same is true for our joints and our spine. About halfway through this posture. Okay, so now we're going to take a short break, and this is called a rebound. We just come up and then back onto our back. We'll rest for a few moments. Then let's bring our legs in. This is a counter stretch, and we call this one the leg cradle. So you're just sort of hugging or cradling your legs in. And you'll notice I'm moving around a little bit. And there's no one way to do this. Just don't hurt yourself. I'm pretty sure you can manage that on your own. And do things that help your body feel like it's being relieved of the strain and the pain of those last few postures. Take your time, but when you're done, what I'd like you to do is take your hands under your hips with the palms down, so you create a little shelf for your sacrum. And then you straighten your legs, and if there's any pain in your back, then you need to bend your knees until that pain goes away. Otherwise, you can keep your legs straight. You lift your head and neck, take a deep breath, and as you exhale, you lower the legs toward the ground. And just before they touch, you pause. Inhale the legs up, and let the weight of the legs pull you up. So it's a tiny bit of core work. It stabilizes the hips and the spine, and it brings us up to seated, which is exactly what we want. Okay, so now we are going to do the half dragonfly pose. Okay, so you'll notice characteristic of the half dragonfly is my legs are wide and straight. Okay, so wide and straight. And then the first step is to fold over my left leg, like so. And then see, do I feel a stretch here and here? Ideally both. If you can only get one, that's okay, but ideally you feel stretch here, you feel stretch here. Now, for more intensity, you can roll or stack your right shoulder over your left shoulder like that. May not be necessary. And please remember that more is not necessarily better. So when I say more intensity or more stretch, it doesn't mean better stretch, okay? In yin yoga, a lot of times about 60–70% of your maximum is good. It doesn't need to be full out all the time. Okay, so we're going to switch sides. This can be a really challenging posture for many people, myself included. I hope you can see kind of how awkward mine is. Mine might be better than many people. You know, some people might be like this. That's it. That's fine as long as you feel the stretch here and here, or at least one of them. These are obliques. We're stretching those. These are the adductors. We're stretching those. And again, the spine is moving into what's called lateral flexion. And so the key is just to do the best that you can. I really discourage you from thinking of yoga as a performance art or a performance-oriented activity. I know some people, even people from India, even people who call themselves yoga teachers, see it that way. But if you actually go back, the yoga tradition goes back thousands of years. And if you look at the roots of the tradition, it has nothing to do with performance. It has nothing to do with stretching even, or postures. There were no yoga postures when yoga first started. And so some people might want to argue that, oh, well, that's irrelevant, or that is antiquated or outdated, but it's not. I'm a yoga teacher. I'm a modern yoga teacher. I've studied with some of the best teachers around, world famous teachers who teach internationally, and it's definitely not irrelevant. And so yoga is not about striving to be something that we aren't, but really letting ourselves be the best version of ourselves that we can be. And relaxation is a part of that. Releasing tension is a part of that. Maybe getting stronger is a part of that too. So it's a very natural process, but even natural processes don't always feel good. And the example I like to give is giving birth. If you are a first-time mother, and if no one told you that what you were going through was expected, I think you would think you were dying. You would think the world was coming to an end. You would think you were sick. So giving birth, the most natural thing for a human being, right? I mean, none of us would be here if we weren't birthed from our mothers. Somebody went through that very uncomfortable process so we could be here. It's amazing. It's a miracle. But if we think natural means feels good, is easy, I'm supposed to like it, that's just not reality. And so yoga is really no different. Yoga is a system that really allows us to physically, mentally, emotionally, energetically be our best selves. But sometimes the way that we get there can be very uncomfortable, very difficult. Like this posture. Again, this is not an easy pose for me. It feels really intense, and it's kind of, again, awkward for my body. Okay, so let's rebound. Again, we'll counter stretch with the leg cradle. And let's hinge on up to seated. Okay, we'll do a little extra counter stretching. We're about halfway point, so we'll do a few more counter stretches and warm-ups. So this is called the marauding bear. And you just, move around a little bit, get some movement and blood flow into different parts of your body. So like my hips, if I swing my hips here, I can feel them stretch. They feel like they need that. So I'll repeat it a few times, but you might feel it in your back. So you might repeat that sort of cat-cow movement a few times. And then when you're done with that, you can tuck those toes, and then same thing with the feet and the legs. Just gonna stretch things out, pedal back and forth a few times. Now I'm going to turn for the sake of the camera, but you do not need to turn on your mat. We'll do now what's called a half seal pose. So I bring my right knee forward, hips down. You'll see my right foot is here. Now I don't want to hurt my ankle or my knee, so you need to be sure that that doesn't happen. An alternative to this would be, say, the dragon pose, but for me it's not the same, it's not as effective. So we're here, and then you may also want to use props if you have them. So these are yoga blocks. You may or may not have these at home. But what I like to do for this posture is to push myself back with the blocks. All right, so again, there are two things happening here. I'm stretching the front of my right hip. I'm also bringing my spine into what's called spinal extension. So my right leg is in extension and my spine is in extension. And I feel the stretch at the front of my right hip, and I feel a little bit of compression in my back, okay? Now the name of this sequence is Double Trouble, and the reason for that is like this posture. This is a challenging, difficult yin posture for many people. Now again, challenging doesn't mean bad. I didn't put this in here to make it difficult for you. This is a very therapeutic posture. It helps many people with back. If they have chronic back pain, it can help with that. Of course, chronic back pain can be caused by many different things, so I'm not promising that this is going to address your issue. But it's not uncommon for back problems to be related with issues relating to dysfunctional hip flexors, also the sacroiliac joint. That whole hip complex has a lot going on, and if things become dysfunctional there, it can cause back pain. And this is one of the things that's very often dysfunctional. These muscles we're stretching right now are very often both tight, meaning inflexible, and weak. And that's really the worst for a muscle group. Some people have strong muscles that are tight, still not ideal. Other people have flexible muscles that are weak, still not ideal. And the best case is we have flexible and strong muscles. So this is one reason why I encourage all of my students to do both the yin and the power yoga that I teach. The yin focuses more on stretching, and the power yoga, there's at least more of an emphasis on strengthening. And this is the yin and yang of a healthy body, healthy muscles. Both stretching and strengthening the muscles so that they are both strong and flexible. Just 1 minute left here. I know this can be really intense, so just try and stay with it. If you're clenching your jaw, just let your jaw relax. Let all the muscles in your face relax. If you're holding your breath or you're breathing erratically, just try and slow your breath down a bit. Like I said at the beginning, in yin yoga, we normally don't try and control our breathing, but we can if you find it helpful. You know, if you're getting anxious, you can slow your breath down and it will help you feel a little better, help you relax a bit. Okay. So take your time, we're going to switch sides. You might want to come through like a down dog to do that, that's fine. And again, it's not pigeon pose. And I want to feel it right in here. Hip flexors. Okay, right at the, you can press at the front of your hip joint. So some of you have heard me say in the past that our hips are one of the casualties of a modern chair-bound, living in a modern chair-bound society, sedentary society, which describes us. This is a trend that's been happening for a while, but it's really starting to become a bit of an epidemic in our lifetimes. So, generally speaking, your parents, when they were your age, whatever age you are, were healthier than you are. Generally speaking, again, your parents specifically may have had some kind of condition, and then their parents, your grandparents, were, generally speaking, healthier than you are when they were your age than you are. And generally what's been happening, there's several things happening. But one of the things that's happening, the one that's relevant to what we're talking about, is the amount of movement that is required by you physically throughout your day has just gone down. So think of your television. Your parents would have had to get up off the couch in order to change the channel on the television. You don't anymore. Things like if you have a hatchback or a minivan many minivans and hatchbacks now will automatically close doors for you. For the rear hatch, you can press a button and it will close for you. Well, when I was growing up, when I was young, we didn't have that. So my parents, when they were my age, they didn't have that. They had to manually close the trunk or the door or the hatch, whatever it is. These are just a couple examples. I can think of many, many more. And so, generally speaking, we human beings, we've been wired through thousands of years of evolution to try and conserve our energy, which generally means if we don't have to move or do something, we're not going to elect to do so. We would rather just, lay down or be still or sit, something like that. Add to that most of our modern jobs are desk jobs. And you begin to see the picture, right? During agricultural times, if you're a farmer, you had to move a lot. You expended a lot of calories, you moved a lot, you bent over a lot, you did all kinds of things. You were in fairly good physical shape. Now you can move too much, but we're not going to talk about that because that's not the issue for most of us today. And then even during industrialization, if you were a factory worker, that was basically a blue-collar job, was a physical labor job. You were doing certain things. Again, you might overuse certain muscles, but at least you were moving. Generally speaking, moving is better than, moving a lot during your day is better than not moving. And that's where most of us are. We're not moving enough. And so when we understand this, and if we can understand the importance of movement, not just to our physical health, because our physical health affects our mood, it affects how clearly we can think. And if you believe in such things, it even affects us on a spiritual level as well. And so when we understand that, we can begin to intentionally bring movement back into our life. And yoga is one way you can do that. It's a very good way to do that. And so your job has provided you with these 2 classes free of charge. And you've got this one on Friday, which is, again, the stretch class, basically. And you have the one on Monday, which is the more of a kind of a workout, strengthening class. And from my perspective, they're really both necessary for that well-rounded health. But there are things you can do the rest of the week, like walk or hike. You could go to the gym, you could go swimming. There are many, many other ways that you can add movement into your day. Okay, that was a challenging one, but we're done. Let's go ahead and come back onto our back and we'll relax for a moment. Again, that's called the rebound. All right, we'll bring our legs in, give them a little squeeze. Again, this is a part of the practice. It's the leg cradle. It's our counter stretch. I can hear all kinds of things cracking and moving. Again, this is the power of movement. Now, stillness is also very valuable. And that might seem like a contradiction to what I just said, but I'll try and explain once we get into the next posture. So this next posture is called TTR for short, or twisted roots. And what we'd like is to take our left knee over our right. So make sure you know your left and right. A lot of people get this reversed. Left over right. You can lock ankles if you want, but you don't have to. Your legs could be like that. And then we're going to drop them to the left. Now this is probably going to feel awkward. And that's just the nature of the posture. So my knees are in the air. Yours may be on the ground. You could also put a block underneath them. My shoulder is in the air as well. Again, I could put a blanket underneath it or a block to support it, or I can just leave it in the air. What I'm trying to do is stretch the outside of my hip and maybe my waist. And I'm stretching here at the front of my chest as well. So I can experiment with the leg, arm, head, and neck position to find the safest, most effective, and most comfortable position. Those are really the three things that you want to focus on, okay? So let me address what I had said earlier about stillness. So it might sound like I was extolling the virtues of movement, and indeed I am. It's absolutely essential that you begin to add more movement into your day. If you're a typical American, then you're just not moving vigorously enough, often enough. Your joints aren't being moved far enough, okay, for you to maintain your health. And again, I'm not just talking about your physical health. Maybe some of you are on antidepressant drugs or other things like that. And, you know, those things are on the rise: depression, anxiety, insomnia, all kinds of things. And we have to ask, like, if we're so dependent on drugs and pharmaceuticals and surgeries and doctors, how the heck did we make it? How did the human race make it if we're so fragile and we're falling apart? These things are on the rise. Okay, so they're on the rise because we're taking ourselves further and further away from our natural environment, where movement would have been necessary just to survive. And so the happiness that comes from moving, from exercising, comes naturally. It's unavoidable. So there was a study that I read, or an article that I read a long time ago, and it was based on some studies that had been done. And what the article suggested is that we live in a sort of movement no man's land, most of us. So, you know, you type on your computer, yeah, that's movement, but it's not vigorous movement. You drive your car, again, a little bit of movement. You walk to your fridge, a little bit of movement. But you're also not completely still. Except when you sleep, you're not actually still. And what this article found is that with these different studies, it was beneficial for you to bring yourself out of that no man's land daily. And there are two ways that you can do that. One is you move more vigorously. So a workout, vinyasa or power yoga, go for a hike, go for a run, climb, bike, swim. Okay, all of those things will take you out of that no man's land in one direction. But there's another way of getting out of that no man's land that takes you in the other direction. And that's meditation. And that's stillness. And again, it's a stillness that's beyond the stillness that you have, you know, when you're watching television or at your desk, because it includes, you might say, stillness of the mind as well. So not only is your body still, but your mind is as well. Relatively speaking, I don't want to give you the wrong impression about meditation, because the mind, just like the heart and the breath, the mind has a tendency to move, and we don't have to obsess about trying to eliminate all our thoughts. But having a period of time where we can allow our thoughts to settle is a very, very good idea for most of us. Okay, so we gradually come back through neutral, and then on this side it's going to be right over left down to the right. Okay. Okay, so let's unwind. We'll come back onto our back, relax. And let's draw our legs in. We'll give them a little squeeze, shake it out, a little bit of movement. And then we'll do a final longer relaxation. And in yin, we call this pentacle pose. So I like this position personally. But you can play around, arms straight or bent, higher or lower. Find a position that is comfortable and that you can maintain for about 6 minutes. And then grab your phone or a watch or something, set a timer for 6 minutes. You can do longer if you like, but I wouldn't do shorter than that. Just come onto your back, relax, close your eyes. And like I was saying earlier in the class, stillness. This is like a miniature meditation, 6 minutes of stillness. And in that time, you might feel an itch, but see if you can just not scratch it. You might feel emotions, anxiety. You might have a thought, oh my God, I need to do this, I need to do that. See if instead of responding or reacting to those, you just observe them. Where does your mind go? Where does your heart go when you're still for a few minutes and not sleeping? This is the beginning of the meditative process, just observing our inner life. And the best way to do that is to keep the body still.